This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with the Koloff Dynasty, Aleksandr Koloff, Neal Koloff, and the great wrestling legend, Nikita Koloff. How is everyone today?
We're doing wonderful. Always great to be back with Hannibal TV. You are one of the best of the best.
Thank you. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, back 2 or 3 years ago, I did a full career interview with Nikita. That was one of my most well-received interviews. And you're one of the nicest wrestlers I ever met. So I'll give you that.
Well, you know what? Two things. One, it was great meeting your dad. You did a stellar job on the interview, like for real. And I've done a lot of interviews, different types of interviews, and I think that was maybe 2018 we did that, maybe 2017, but either way, I still get a lot of positive comments and responses on how well you put that together. So kudos to you, my brother.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. And before we get into this interview talking about this new faction that's forming, all the fans want to know your thoughts, of course, Nikita, on Road Warrior Animal's passing. He helped get you into the business, as you told me in that interview, and it's kind of shocking for all of us to hear today. And I know the other boys knew him a little bit as well.
Yeah, we'll let Aleksandr and Neal, I'm sure, comment as well. And in fact, Neal's got a great story, a relatively recent story. But that said, yeah, I mean, Joe and I go way back to the days I recruited him out of Irondale High School in New Brighton, Minnesota, to play college football with me, and we had incredible memories. Thinking back on those days of suiting up and playing ball together. And then, of course, the condensed version of the story, then fast forward a few years, and then he recruited me. He called me and recruited me out of football into pro wrestling. And not something I was really looking for on my radar, but lo and behold, it worked out the way it did. And I mean, just so many memories come flooding back in. It is a bit of a surprise for me, as I got the information. My phone's been blowing up all day, text messages, phone calls, etc. And anytime, I mean, unless you really know somebody's, struggling with health issues or something like that, something like this comes as a surprise to people, certainly, and catches people off guard. And but some of my favorite memories, riding up and down the road together with him, pre wrestling, back in those college days, hanging out in the backyard in a swimming pool with a whole group of us muscleheads, making his dad mad. Who, he'd come home from slaving at work all day and watch 20 muscleheads, floating around his pool, eating all his food. Back in our starving college days. And so that's just one of, gosh, so many memories. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but so many memories that just come flooding back. And ironically, I guess 2 weeks ago, I got a text message from his wife and said, "Hey, would you mind, his big 60 is coming up, his 60th birthday. Would you mind putting together a little video birthday wish to him?" And absolutely. And so I did that just 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, and to surprise him for his birthday. And then here we are, fast forward a couple weeks later, and he's passed and no longer with us. But Aleksandr, why don't you share a couple thoughts? And Neal, you got a great story.
Yeah, I got to meet Animal a couple of years ago. That was the first.
We're having a little problem hearing you, Aleksandr. I don't know about the other guys.
Yeah, I couldn't hear either.
I couldn't hear him at all.
No, it's very faint. You may have to take the earbuds out. It's very faint. There you go. Yep. There you go. No, talk.
Strange.
No,
His
put the
microphone-
earbuds back in, bro.
Yeah, his microphone is off. It shows it.
Oh, muted? I think you're muted, bro. You can tell for the fans out there, wrestlers are not the most, and I'll be the first to admit, the most technologically advanced. Like,
Yeah,
Like,
I'm sure Neal is loving this. I'm usually
yeah. There you are. We can hear you.
Do I hear you now?
sorry.
Okay, they're perfect now.
Yeah, I'd met Animal a couple of times. The first time was 2 or 3 years ago at a show for Continental, and it was just really cool. One of my earliest wrestling memories was of the Road Warriors, and he was, aside from just getting him to share some of his knowledge with us and everything of things that could make us better. He was a good man, and that was my takeaway. It hit hard today because he was just a good man to be around, and I think that's a loss for everybody.
Yeah, one of the earliest memories. I mean, obviously growing up in the Crockett in the Mid Atlantic Territory, and watching the Road Warriors, the Koloffs, and Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair. But one of the memories to me of Animal that sticks out to me was last year. It was myself and Nikita. We were in I want to say it was Denton, Texas. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think so. Yep.
And we were going to a show, and we were in the car with Animal and with Jax Dane, and just being able to, for me, it was a true treat because I'm sitting next to my mentor, my idol, Nikita Koloff, to my right, and then in the front seat is Road Warrior Animal, and and hearing the stories of back in the Crockett days, and back with him and Hawk going to Japan, and hearing some funny stories about Hawk, was a real true treat. And not only that, but like Joe, really helped, really helped me, like in terms of psychologically, with a lot of the things that were coming up for myself and for Aleksandr. And so with that was just that was something that I just really cherish. I didn't know him long, but the time that I did get to know him was just an amazing opportunity to be able to know him, and just a really good human being. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to do that to extend his knowledge and to extend his help and gratitude to somebody that he barely knew. And for that, I'll always cherish that.
Now, as far as the Koloff Dynasty, I've seen the pictures online. I think you did something with the NWA before they went on hiatus. But for those of us that are totally unfamiliar with this new faction, obviously you look great. But how did this whole dynasty get started? And what are your goals in wrestling? Maybe we can start with Nikita again, and then you guys can add your 2 cents.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate it. Yeah, in fact, Neal's mentioning that story about Animal, us out together in Texas. In fact, we even at that time were bouncing different ideas. He had a great mind for the business, just exactly what Neal's talking about. Joe had a great mind for the business. He was, he could come up with some creative storylines and even some specifically in regards to this, creative ideas for Koloff Dynasty that we bounced around. And but prior to that, to give you the viewers a little more backstory, prior to that, looking back on my my wrestling career, wrestling under the tutelage of Uncle Ivan Koloff Jatoeta, right? And all that I learned from Uncle Ivan in terms of psychology, old school ring psychology, the mechanics of wrestling from him and Don Kernodle as the World Tag Team Champions, and then many others along the way, right? Whether it was Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes or Ricky Steamboat or Steve Austin, or I mean, you can just go right down the list of guys I was fortunate to be in the ring with, right? Rock and Roll Express, Lex Luger, Sting. I mean, we could go on and Rick Rude. I mean, where do you want me to stop? But that said, when Neal approached me, I guess probably 2 or 3 years ago now, maybe time flies, I think, with the idea of extending the Koloff legacy, right? So I think it's no secret. People know, Uncle Ivan and I were uncle and nephew in TV land, right? I mean, I didn't grow up in Russia, wasn't born in Russia. Ivan wasn't either, but he was a lot closer to Russia than I was because he was from Vancouver, right? So, so he was much closer to Russia. But to entertain the idea to extend the Koloff legacy, I've known Neal for quite a number of years, been on many shows, watched his work ethic, and his skills and abilities in the ring speak for themselves. And I was intrigued. I was intrigued with the idea, and the more we talked about it, the more we kicked it around. I really felt like, especially with what's going on in the current climate of wrestling, that a tag team would be perhaps more effective than just a singles. And I did both, right? Magnum TA and then World Tag Champs and all that deal. But I just felt like, yeah, that might be the avenue which to take. And lo and behold, along the way comes Aleksandr. And I wasn't as familiar with him, but have watched some of his matches, some of his work ethic, and then what both of these guys have accomplished over their careers. So they're not brand new guys just getting started. They're very seasoned veterans that I would believed once we kind of got in the gym, worked out, as people will see with the video vignettes we put together, the little story from the very beginning from the fold to the family. These guys once again proved themselves in the gym working out. They've proven themselves in the ring working out, and then culminating with an appearance NWA Power Circle Squared last December in Atlanta, and where they were able to kind of debut their talents together. And the outcome wasn't necessarily what we were looking for, but it sparked enough interest from the fans, as well as continued my inspiration to believe they have what it takes. So, Neal, why don't you jump in there first this time and kind of give your perspective, since you got the ball rolling on all this.
Yeah, knowing Nikita as long as I have for, gosh, like 10 plus years, I think it seems. And like he said, just being on the same shows, I just noticed that, like he said, the landscape of wrestling needed something. It needed that spark. And what better way to bring back something that had a very big impact in the industry with the Koloff family. And when I approached Nikita about it, I knew that this was something that could be done. The one thing about Nikita, for those of you out there, is that it's not one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, no problem. It's one of those, like, show me how bad you want it. Show me how bad you want it. Work hard. Show your dedication. Show your work ethic. Show exactly how bad you want this. And that was something that I know Aleksandr and I both did. Just putting in the time, the work ethic, the dedication, watching hours and hours and hours of film, just on Ivan and Nikita, and just their matches, like his legendary match with Ric Flair, Starrcade '86, Starrcade '87 with Terry Taylor, just on and on and on, and even with feuds that Nikita had with Sting, and even feuds that Ivan had with Bruno in the Garden. He beat Bruno in the Garden for the WWF title. So, hours and hours of just watching that, and then perfecting that craft of what I could do in the ring at that time, perfecting it into, something that we could do today. And then joining forces with Aleksandr has been a true blessing, because, and I think I can speak for Aleksandr on this when I say that when we got in the ring for the first time teaming up, it was like looking in the mirror. And that's something that you don't necessarily find a lot of in this industry. And that's something that Aleksandr and I both really, really take pride in.
It's good.
You have anything to say about it, Alexander?
I think those guys pretty much covered it, but yeah, it was. I was obviously familiar with Nikita and what he did over the years, and then Neal and I had known each other for for a while and everything, and been on shows and everything together. Had never been in the ring together, but yeah, just like he said, I mean, our first time in, that was one of the things that went through my mind was that we moved alike, we were thinking similar. A lot of things didn't have to be discussed. We were on the same page all the time, and like what Neal said, I mean, Nikita's definitely a person that he'll match the effort that you put in. And once we showed that we were serious and we wanted it and we're willing to put in the work, it's paid off well for us. And I think we got a lot of big things to come, and we'll be able to show everybody that here coming soon.
There's some fans on here commenting that they'd love to see you guys in a company like AEW. Nikita, is that something you'd like to see? Is there any company in particular where you'd like to end up, or you just want to take over everywhere?
That's a great question, and these guys are spot on. I will just tag quickly on what they said too. Is I didn't jump on this right away when Neal first approached. I mean, I can think back now. It was a year of conversations back and forth before we really got kind of more serious about pursuing this, and then as things evolved. The word proving themselves. Yeah, I just said, okay, prove yourselves. If you are serious about this, here's my vision on it. Here's my view of what can accomplish. There are some obvious natural storylines out there. I mean, I think these guys will again be a formidable opponent to any tag team in the current industry. Like for real, they as I said, it's of course, we opened up talking about Road Warrior Animal, right? And when you think back on the legendary tag team of the Legion of Doom and the Road Warriors, I mean, those two guys are in my view, the pinnacle of tag team, and held every major title around the world, and it's very uncommon, as Neal said, or unusual that two guys can sustain themselves that long and work that well together. And I believe these two guys have that ability. So whether it's Impact or AEW or Ring of Honor or Major League, whatever it is, whatever league, or on the independent circuit, these guys are going to prove themselves a formidable team. And there are some natural storylines out there. I mean, obviously, Dusty Rhodes and I held won the Jim Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament together. We were the superpowers. I mean, so there was, we were a natural tag team. So there were some things we did together. I mean, the NWA. There's lots of history with the NWA, and so I say all that to say wherever they would perhaps end up, and again, I've said to them, hey, prove yourselves, get yourself booked in matches wherever they are, and prove yourselves as a formidable tag team to where some organization is going to say, we want these guys. We're not looking for somebody just to open up their checkbook and give us and throw a contract our way. I want these two guys to prove themselves and to show the industry they have what it takes as a tag team.
Yeah, just to jump in real quick. Couple of people were commenting about Gallows and Anderson would be a great battle. Well, you got an opportunity to see that this Saturday night in Jackson, Georgia. We'll be in a match against the Good Brothers for an Impact Plus taping in Jackson for Lariato Pro.
And someone also mentioned PCW Ultra based out of LA.
Dan Masters.
Yeah, Dan Masters, the ring announcer for PCW Ultra, said that.
We lost our host.
They have War Beast.
Let me say this while we're waiting for him to come back. Here's the other thing I'll chime in on too for the viewers out there. Keep in mind, these guys, we all speak pretty good English, the three of us. I even spoke pretty good English too, just for the record. But it's in today's world, it's all about telling a story. As you fans are very educated and very understanding and know that, And that's what we're trying to do here, is tell a story, of it's. I'm reminded of a guy named Mean Mark Callis. All right, Neal Alexander. Who was he?
Oh, the Undertaker.
The Undertaker. I'm thinking of a guy named Mick Foley. Who'd he wrestle as?
Cactus Jack.
Cactus Jack, Mankind. So just understand, those of you watching, watching this today, and whoever might watch a replay or whatever, just keep in mind that we're building a story here, and from the Koloff legacy comes the Koloff Dynasty, and so that's.
Oh, there he is again.
Host permanently here.
Can you hear me now? I'm here. Can you hear me, Nikita? Am I not showing up?
No, you're on. I think it's.
Huh?
Okay, I think we got everybody now.
Yeah, I can hear everybody just fine.
Okay, I'll let you continue on. I think we just lost Nikita for a couple seconds.
Okay.
What'd you miss out on? I mean, because the three of us were here, we lost you, or at least I lost you.
Well, there's a fan question I'll bring up here. There was a fan that mentioned he was live when you were in the War Games tour, teaming with Dusty and the Road Warriors against the Four Horsemen. Nikita, any memories of that?
Yeah, especially the original one. I mean, nobody knew what to expect. It was a brand new creative. Dusty was a creative genius, and nobody knew what to expect. And so, I guess that what comes back to memory quickly is the electricity, the atmosphere in the arena that night, and just the buildup. The buildup leading up to it, and then the anticipation of it, and then the night of it, the back and forth buildup to when all five of us eventually would get in the ring. But the story we told that night, flip-flopping back and forth, the 2-on-1 advantage led for, I think, a very memorable match for the fan, a very legendary match, and set a benchmark for organizations and others to try to follow.
And as far as some of the great matches you guys have had so far as a faction, is there any that stand out, or any that people could search up on the internet?
Yeah, the one match that we had on NWA Circle Square with Luke and PJ Hawks, that was a memorable one just because we got to showcase our talent there on NWA, and really just, Luke and PJ. I mean, Luke's been around for a while, but at the same time, like, actually being in the ring with PJ, who PJ is a very decorated amateur wrestler. And actually being in there with him and getting to, kind of roll around with him just a little bit, it really was unique. It really was unique, and it gave us an opportunity to get our feet wet, on a huge platform like that.
I see. And as far as people that want to book you, is there a specific website or email address if there's an independent promoter out there that wants to search you guys up and book you for an event?
Yeah, you can hit up either one of us. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Jeff Lewis Neal, on Twitter at Jeff Lewis Neal, but you can search Neal Koloff and it'll pop up on Facebook and Twitter, and also on Instagram at Neal Koloff. And Alexander, you want to go with that?
Yeah, at Aleksandr Koloff, spelled with a K and an S, on Twitter, Aleksandr Koloff on Instagram, and Aleksandr Koloff on Facebook. Hit up either one of us and we'll get back to you pretty quick.
Now, do you all do the Russian accents when you're back out there? Because there's a lot of fans commenting still that it's unusual to hear Nikita without the Russian accent.
Well, these two guys were the only ones hearing that story, I guess. So just very briefly. So here's here's the deal. I was saying that all three of us are speaking a pretty good accent. Even you with that Canadian accent, just so you know, speaking some pretty good. But and Ivan spoke some pretty good English. So here's the deal. We're not, we're not, pretending to be one thing and then being something else. What I mean by that is what I said earlier. If it didn't broadcast was, who knows who Mean Marcalis was? Who was he?
The Undertaker.
Yeah.
The Undertaker. Who was Mick Foley? Cactus Jack. Mankind. I mean, so it's not. Who was the Repo Man?
Barry Darso.
Oh, Barry Darso. Or Crusher Khrushchev.
Crusher Khrushchev, right? And so the point being, we're just building a story here of extending the Koloff legacy into a dynasty. So not necessarily trying to pretend to be one person and while being someone else. What's most important to me and these guys in agreeing to be a part of the dynasty is just to extend the Koloff name. And as part of that character, we're going to be who we are at this point, but bring an incredible talent, incredible display of talent and opportunity to whatever organization might be interested in having us. And who knows, I may just have a flashback, Jatoita, and put the name out there. I'm just saying, you know what I'm talking about? There, that's for your viewers out there.
There's a few of them that said they want to see the Russian sickle from you again.
Well, you never know. Now, these two guys are perfecting the sickle. So even if they never saw it from me again, these two guys are perfecting it. But that's not to say you never can tell what's going to happen at a wrestling match, right? So
that's right.
Very true.
And you all look like you're power lifters. What are some of your lifts in the gym? We'll start with Neal, I guess.
I've mainly been doing a lot of CrossFit lifts. I've been doing a lot of power cleans, a lot of deadlifts, and some bench press mainly. Like I've been trying to study up on a lot of the Russian lifting, like for Aleksandr Koloff, the multiple time gold medalist. I was an amateur wrestler myself. Growing up here in South Carolina, I was a 2-time South Carolina State Wrestling Champion. I was a NCAA Division II wrestling qualifier. So being involved in the amateur wrestling field, obviously knowing about, in my opinion, the greatest of all time, a lot of people say Dan Gable is. And Dan Gable, tremendous athlete. But, let's face it, he didn't go anywhere past Aleksandr Koloff in the career. Once he won his Olympic gold medal, he stopped. He got into coaching, and then he took his legacy, to the next level with the University of Iowa. And so with Aleksandr Koloff, I started studying up on a lot of his workout routines. And believe it or not, I don't know if you know this story, but he would time his bench presses. He would go on the bench and he would put 300 pounds on there and go for 15 minutes. He would time his bench presses instead of counting his reps. And that was just something that was unique to me. He would do that with his bench presses and his deadlifts. And that is something that I have not yet mastered. In 300 pounds on the bench press for 15 reps. I can get 300 on the bench, but not for 15 minutes. So that's a little bit difficult. But in watching his training routine has actually inspired me to do more into the gym and just become just that overall incredible athlete that he was. And that's a motivation for me in the gym. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of improvements with me.
And what about you, Alexander?
Here the past couple of months, I've gone to more endurance lifting like Neal was talking about. But, back in December and everything, I was lifting heavy. I'm still benching in the 3s, deadlifting the 4s, and squatting in the 3s. I don't squat as heavy as I used to, just because my back gets beat up enough as is.
And I'll chime in and just I tell people I'm not trying to impress anybody in the gym anymore. But that said, I am still in the gym 49 years consistently that I have been working out on a regular basis. And I just do what I call maintenance training. And if and I do want to keep in shape just in case I need to pull that Russian sickle out sometime. I still need to maintain some level of being in shape.
I'm gonna guess you broke the 500-pound bench press mark when you were in your youth, Nikita.
I did not, and I get asked that a lot. I mean, I was if I was going to brag on any lifts, I remember back in 9th grade. I can remember back that far. I was squatting over 500 back in like for reps. Like, I mean, legs was my thing. Bench was never my strong thing. I can remember like vividly doing leg extensions with over 300 pounds for reps back in those days, and in what we call junior high school, and that was just my thing. And then the is that me? Is that me again?
Yeah,
That was you on.
That's weird.
Cut off when you said the training.
Yeah, the traps. The traps were my my thing. That was the easiest muscle to develop. But no, I did not ever hit the 500-pound bench. The excuse I use is my arms were too long, too much, not enough leverage.
Was there anything special you did for traps, or just really heavy shrugs?
Dude, I did. It was crazy. Now, some people might find this hard to believe, but it was like real. I mean, I did everything from shrugs with dumbbells to. I mean, I worked shrugs like some people would work biceps, right, or work their legs or whatever. I can remember. Now, I used to put straps on my wrist to be able to hold the bar, but with no exaggeration, back in the college days, I would do shrugs for reps with 800-900 pounds in a power rack for rep for real. And I loved it. And for whatever, it was natural. It was just a natural deal. It's crazy.
Walter is asking you. Oh, sorry. What were you saying? Are you getting there?
I'm getting there. Don't worry. I'm getting there.
Progress, not perfection, but progress.
Absolutely.
You got a question?
Yeah, Walter has a question. He was wondering, Nikita, if you have any memories from WCW of working with Sting and Lex Luger.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to, my return when I presented Lex with new U.S. belt upside his head in Phoenix, Arizona. That led into a feud with him, and then when we made the decision to go after Sting, they were wrestling in St. Petersburg and in a tag against the Steiners, and I went after Lex, and he ducked and nailed Sting, and we fought all the way out into the parking lot. And then ultimately my appeal to Sting. Are we good, guys?
I can hear you. We've lost Alexander, but I'm sure he'll pop back.
Okay, this whole technology thing is crazy. And then ultimately my appeal to Sting, for him to kind of end my career on a positive note as a partner with Sting and walk away from wrestling. So lots of memories for sure.
There's another fan, Eric, asking if you have any memories, Nikita, of wrestling at the Shrine Mosque in Springfield.
In Springfield?
Yes.
So not the Jaffa Mosque? No, that's in Altoona.
Yeah, he says the Shrine Mosque in Springfield, but he didn't say what state Springfield. So be more specific, Eric, if you're still
the only okay, because the only one I'm at the Jaffa Mosque in Altoona, Pennsylvania, against Bob Backlund, of all people, my one match against Bob Backlund in the Jaffa Mosque in Altoona, Pennsylvania. That was a memorable match.
Now,
I can imagine.
hey, I've never heard that story. I've heard a lot of stories, but I've never heard that story of wrestling good old Bobby Backlund.
Yeah, I'm interested in hearing that one.
It was just and it was hilarious because the whole Russian thing going on, and so somehow he found an army helmet, and he kind of looks like Howdy Doody, right? I mean, if you kind of think of Howdy Doody with an army helmet and coming out in fatigues, that's basically how he donned the ring that night. And I don't know if he borrowed it from Sergeant Slaughter or where he got it, but I mean, it was hard to keep a straight face, which I was able to usually do pretty well. But that was difficult. That was challenging that night to keep a straight face against the legendary Bob Backlund. We had a decent match. I don't remember the final outcome, but the people loved it because obviously we played off the whole USA deal, and so. Yeah, I mean, as far as all the details, that was the most vivid memory, was him coming out in that army helmet and in his fatigues. So
Now, I know Nikita was a bouncer. You guys look like you probably may have done some bouncing in your lives, but Hellraiser is asking if any of you guys have bouncing stories.
I do. I did some bouncing. I want to say the last time I bounced was last year, and I don't even think I told Uncle this story, but I was bouncing at a dance club here in Greenville, South Carolina, and things just got a little bit out of hand towards the end of the night. And so one of the guys decided he wanted to try and throw a shot. And I pretty much remember the stories you used to tell us, Unc, with you and Animal and Hawk, where there was a tripwire outside and you make them do the couple of flips over. Well, we had something similar, but the thing was with me, I just ended up tossing the guy over. And once he took the tumble over and the cops got him, I started reminiscing back. I was like, Uncle Nikita would be proud right now.
Well, proud in one sense, but I think if you recall, I think they've given you some fatherly advice, or you might say uncle nephew advice, and said, "Dude, you need to get out of that profession."
Oh yeah, I got out. I got out quickly. I realized that once the fights continued to happen, I was like, I love my fiance. I love my little boy more than anything. I got to get out of this. So,
too risky.
I decided.
And any stories?
Yeah, I did a little bit back with my Sambo coach. Sambo's a Russian form of wrestling, ironically. And he was like this big, dieseled up ex-Navy SEAL. And so Gerard's thing was always just don't do anything on your own. You guys work together. And so these guys were smoking weed at a table. It was back in '96 during the Olympics and everything. And I came up and I asked the guy, this junk plays out like a movie. Trying to be polite. I said, hey, will you put that out for me, please? He takes a hit, looks up at me and blows it in my face. And I said, that was a bad choice. So I went and got Gerard. Like I said, he looks like Wesley Snipes, Diesel, the Demolition Man, but just all jacked up. And I said, hey, I got a problem. And he goes, what is it? And I told him what he did. And he goes, he did what? And I mean, he loses it. So he beats me to the table before I can even get over there. And whenever he rounds the corner, those guys were stepping on each other, trying to put it out and everything. They didn't even have to be told to leave. They left. And so then later on in the evening, there were some Georgia Tech linemen that were in there. Got out of hand, real big guys and everything. And Gerard always had this speech that he would give. We're all kind of standing there lined up. And I mean, I was doing this just every now and again. This wasn't like an every weekend thing for me. So I'm got no real I don't want to fight these Georgia Tech linemen. And so Gerard stands there and he looks at the guy and he goes, all right, you're healthy. I'm healthy. You've got a choice to make. You can leave Whatever happens from there, you're responsible for if you choose to not leave right now. The guy goes like he's going to make a move from him, and my coach came out from behind his back. I don't know if you know what I always heard him called a slapjack. It was a piece of leather with like lead in the end of it.
Oh yeah.
Wow. Catches this guy here, knocks him out, and asks the other two linemen. He said, "Now, if you guys would remove your buddy and do that for me, I would appreciate it." Calm. And that was what was scary. It was that calm. And I mean, like, I'm probably shaking as bad as the lineman because I'm shook up watching this guy get dropped like that. And so anyway, it was a couple of times of that, and I was like, oh no, this isn't my thing. I'll fight for sport.
Just for the record, for the viewers out there, bouncing in the club was not a prerequisite for professional wrestlers. That just happened to be something some of the guys did, but it was not a prerequisite. Hey, Aleksandr, Neal gave a little bit of his background for the viewers out there. Take a minute, dude, and just give them a little bit of your background too, be outside of pro wrestling.
Okay. I didn't have the extensive amateur wrestling experience that Neal had. I had jiu-jitsu and combat sambo experience and everything. Did well with that, with some intramural events and everything. Best I did, I won 123 straight. That was my claim to fame with that. And then in boxing, I won a silver medal in the Georgia Games in 2005 at super middleweight.
Very impressive.
Well, I wanted them to share their amateur backgrounds just for people to understand. Again, my decision to bring these two guys aboard and to work with these guys, that played a factor in my decision. That, you know, I just wasn't looking for a couple guys that went to a training camp and decided to be a pro wrestler. I wanted some guys that I knew had a very extensive background and could realistically carry on the Koloff name and make a mark for themselves.
If I can go back real quick on the thing we were talking about earlier with the Russian accent, that was one of the things that, whenever people have asked Neal and I about that even before Uncle said it there, that, we're not trying to be Russian. We're carrying on, and that's been a big honor for us. And it was a lot of hard work to get to that point for Nikita and for Ivan's widow to allow us to carry the Koloff name. And it's been a big honor for us and a thing that we've taken seriously and hope to live up to what the name is, the Koloff Dynasty, and create a dynasty and carry that name forward.
Right.
There's a question on here for Nikita, who said in my previous interview that he made it to the end of the Rocky IV auditions, but Dolph Lundgren ultimately got the job. This person is asking if you had any interaction with Dolph at those auditions.
Well, we were all on the set at the same time, so I didn't really know who he was. I mean, we knew who it was coming down to as far as potentially, one or the other, as far as who would land the role. And so any conversations I had with him were brief, very brief. Again, nobody knew who he was, because he was like, he had never been in a movie before himself, and was just, at that point, it was a kickboxer, right? So I had more conversation with Stallone than I did with Lundgren.
And there's another fan on here asking if you remember Nikita, Superclash 1985, Comiskey Park in Chicago. You were up against Dick the Bruiser, the Crusher, Barrett Vodrashki. Sounds like quite a match.
I gotta say, like, before Uncle answers that question, like, I actually watched that yesterday. I was, again, soaking up, my brain with just how Ivan, Nikita, Crusher, Khrushchev, how everybody just worked together as a real huge cohesive unit, and that match popped up, and I loved it. I loved watching it.
So somebody's asking me if I remember that match. Is that what they're asking?
Yeah, any particular memories? Because there's a lot of legends in that match by the sounds of it.
Yeah, let's just say I'll never forget that match. That's not, how about that's a better way to say it. Okay? like for real. So I'll condense this down as much as I can. So again, I didn't grow up dreaming of being a pro wrestler. The door of opportunity opened up. I became one. So, but on that note, I didn't know half the guys I met those first couple of years. I had no clue, really, and honestly, how legendary. You're right. There were some legendary guys in that match, and on that particular night, we went to the ring first. Obviously, the whole USA booing deal, whole deal. These three guys come out. And the crowd, I mean, goes absolutely crazy. And now in my mind, please just hear me here. I'm 285, right? I'm as green as you get. I'm jacked up, right? And ready to rip somebody's head off. And out walk these three guys. And I'm looking at, and again, and I don't mean this in the wrong way. I honestly don't, but it's just a part of the story. I mean, I'm thinking, did they drink their Geritol before they came out? Right? I mean, for real, like, and I didn't even know who Dick the Bruiser was, how legendary he was. Well, all that to say, we end up in a six-way in the ring, and I end up with Dick the Bruiser in the corner, and this is how I remember it. Like I said, I don't think I'll ever forget it. And he's got me in the corner, and he's throwing these punches. But that's not enough. He's putting sound effects to him. So every punch he throws, he's like, rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat. It's like the Rock'em Sock'em robot. Rat-a-tat-tat. And in my mind, I'm like, rat-a-tat-tat. I'm like, how do I sell this? And, I'm like, I'm 285. This old man can't fight his way out of a paper bag. That's a wet sack, Anyway, all that said, I just felt like I shoved him aside, went over to Uncle Ivan. Uncle Ivan, you better I'm going to kill that old man if you don't get him, right? Come to find out just how legendary he was. And I still run into people who remember Dick the Bruiser from Indiana. But that's my one Dick the Bruiser match and my one story. I'll never forget that match and Dick the Bruiser.
I loved it. I gotta admit, I loved it.
That's hilarious. You just watched that last night. So.
Yes.
That match is online. It's on YouTube or something.
Yes, it is.
Oh, I'm watching that after this. Especially if I could hear rat-a-tat-tat.
Well, I don't know that you'll hear him, but now you'll know this. If you watch it and you see that part, you'll know what he was saying as he was like Rock'em Sock'em robot. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat.
Now that
I'll be saying it.
I'm gonna start watching this rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat.
There you go.
I love the story about him and the Road Warriors where it was I don't know which one it was, but Hawk or Animal, one of the two, pressed him and they
slammed him.
And he said, "What? I think it was Dick the Bruiser that said, 'What are you doing?'" And Animal said, "Whatever I want." And pressed him. How scary is that?
Yeah, exactly. For a fact, I know that story. Yeah, they had matches against some of those guys too, Baron and Crusher and Dick and some of the other guys. Yeah, I'm doing whatever I want, so shut up.
There's a bunch of fans on here commenting about the infamous David Crockett clothesline that Nikita did in that famous interview segment. Was he expecting that, is what they're asking?
So he knew it was coming. I don't think he knew how good it would look. In other words, I don't think he anticipated that I would make it look as good as it looked. And the good news is he did not have to get his jaw wired or anything after the fact. That's the good news. How injured he got, I don't know that I ever inquired. I just knew it was television and it needed to look good.
There's some other fans on here asking about Ravishing Rick Rude, who I know you were close with. You told that hockey fight story the last time I spoke with you. Do you have any other stories about Rick you could share with us?
I mean, really, just Rick was a tough guy, and part of the reason he was tough is because his dad was a Golden Gloves boxer, and basically pummeled Rick in submission. I think as a kid growing up, and meaning he made sure Rick was going to be a tough guy, and he was. And a good athlete. I mean, you know, we played high school football together. He headed off to. He never, like Henning and Animal, you know, didn't finish a college football career, but they started a college football career. But you know, Rick was absolutely incredible to work with inside the ring. You know, nothing but first class and inside the ring, and I know loved his family, and so yeah, those are some thoughts on Rick.
He was so good.
And there's also some fans wondering, I know you were friends with Barry Darso, Nikita, who you talked about earlier as a former Russian as well. How is he doing these days? I know he recently retired from wrestling.
Barry's doing good. Barry's a very successful. In fact, one of our high school buddies, him and Barry have a printing shop together up in Minnesota. And I don't know if Barry has yet to thank me, but you know, us bringing him to the Carolinas where he met his lovely wife Teresa from Gastonia, North Carolina. I'm still waiting for him to thank me for making, you know, for that introduction. Kind of tongue in cheek, but he's got a very, very successful printing business up there with an old high school chum. So Barry's doing really, really well.
And for Neal and Aleksandr, is there any match of Nikita's that stand out to you that really made you guys fans of his when you were younger?
The ones against Magnum were my favorite. I mean, those are, and I seems like I tell this story every time. One of these days, I'm going to jog Uncle's memory, and he's going to remember this for me and make my whole year. One of my best wrestling memories, where I think it was in the best of 7 or it was leading up to the best of 7. Nikita and Magnum are going back and forth. Nikita had the U.S. title on. Magnum gives him the belly to belly, and the plate blew off the belt. I hope someone in wrestling remembers this other than me. Because at that time, that moment in time, you could not tell me that Magnum TA's belly to belly was not the biggest thing in wrestling. My brother and I would argue about it and everything else. I'm like, it just blew the U.S. title off of Nikita Koloff. We're not arguing about this anymore. But those matches were great. And I mean, they were physical. You believed that, you know, there was 2 guys fighting for one of the biggest prizes in the world, and they were magical. That's some of my favorite matches still.
Yeah, you know, for me, I mean, I remember, you know, the matches with Ivan and Nikita against the Rock and Roll Express with Nature Boy Ric Flair, and I was always a fan of Nikita, but one match that really sticks out in my mind, and it was surreal later on in life, was his Starrcade '87 match with Terry Taylor. The reason for it, I mean, it was the TV title unification with the NWA television title and the UWF television title. And Terry Taylor doesn't get enough credit for, you know, how good he really is as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really enjoyed that match so much to where it really showcased not just Terry on what he could do in the ring, but also Uncle Nikita. It showed, you know, just how good he really is as well. And it was just a very good match to watch. But it was so surreal that once Nikita beat Terry and unified the championships, years later, Nikita and I go and we meet up for coffee, and, you know, just chit chatting, you know, just nothing, you know, just nothing about business or anything, just chit chatting, just catching up. And Nikita goes, "Hey, I got something to show you." And he goes to the car and he pulls out the UWF television title that he won at Starrcade '87 that he still has. And I'm sitting there holding that chain. You've got to be kidding me. Like, this is just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And that to me was just a true treat.
A couple. Let me chime in a couple comments there. A couple thoughts forward, and I don't know how much time we have left here, but and so on both those comments, certainly with Magnum, incredible memories, the best of say. It's the most talked about when I go out and do legend signings and autograph signings, all these different places. Most talked about, number one, best of 7 against Magnum TA. Terry Taylor, one of the most underrated guys in the wrestling business. Incredible mind for the business, psychology, great work ethic inside the ring. Very underrated. Not sure why Terry agreed to do the Red Rooster, but I guess everybody's got to make a living, right? But that said, Terry's the only guy who can pull that gimmick off too, and so kudos to Terry and again, for my whole career, what Neal just said is just one example of the reason I had the success I had was because of all of those kinds of guys that I got the privilege of working with. And I want to say this too, since we opened up with Road Warrior Animal, his passing, really want to honor him tonight by saying some very memorable matches early on, certainly were the Russian chain matches and or the tag team matches that Ivan and I had against those guys that many times would bring the house down in a sense. In other words, the fans just really loved it. And then later on, the Superpowers and the Road Warriors tagging up in any combination. We lose our host again, or is that me?
No, you're good. Keep going.
You're good. I'm still here.
Is so the Superpowers and the Road Warriors tagging up in any combination against the Four Horsemen were also an incredible memory as well. So for real.
Is there any Road Warrior match that stands out to you of all the matches you had, either teaming with them or going up against them?
Say the first part again.
Is there any Road Warrior match that you've had in your career that stands out to you as like a very special match, either teaming with them or going up against them?
Well, I think, I mean, there's so many memories, but with one we already addressed, that was the very first ever War Games that we were all involved in, was incredibly memorable. And hey, let me say one other thing too, just while it's in my brain, because my brain just kind of works, right? For all our viewers out there, I know these guys talked about where to find them or how to connect with them, and I didn't mention, but you'll find me pretty regular on Instagram and Twitter. Nikita Koloff with the number 1 behind it. I do have a Facebook presence. And last weekend, I launched a brand new radio show and podcast called It's Time to Man Up. So I want to encourage your viewers out there to go find that on iTunes and Spotify and the different platforms and subscribe to that. We're going to have some incredible, in fact, coming up very soon, we're going to have an interview with Lex Luger. Jackson Riker of WWE interviewed him for the show, and many other incredible interviews that we'll have on It's Time to Man Up. So go find that guy, all you incredible fans out there, and subscribe to that and spread the word on that new podcast and radio show.
And where else can we find you guys to remind the fans as we start to wrap this up here?
Alexander, you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, on Twitter, I'm at Aleksandr Koloff, spelled with a K and an S, not an X. At Aleksandr Koloff on Instagram and Aleksandr Koloff on Facebook.
Yeah, on Facebook, you can type in Neal Koloff, lead directly to mine. It's Jeff Lewis Neal. On Twitter, it's at Jeff Lewis Neal. You can still type in Neal Koloff. It'll take you right to it. And on Instagram, it's at Neal Koloff. And every morning, I'm the producer of the Dex and Barbie T Morning Show on Hot 98.1 and Hot 104.5, which you can catch on Facebook at Hot981 at Facebook.com/Hot981 and Hot1045.
Excellent. Well, if one of you guys wants to send me all of your links with Nikita's podcast and social media and all of your social media, I will put it in the description of this video. So as the fans watch this, I'm sure there'll be thousands over time. They'll just be able to look in the description and find all of those links.
Definitely.
Well, let me one other comment. I just want to conclude kind of with what I opened up with. Hannibal TV. You have a great following because of putting out a great product, and so very appreciative of you giving us the opportunity to tell a little bit about our story and why we want to carry on the Koloff name, and these two guys keep your eyes open, because I do believe that somewhere some organizations going to give these guys a shot, and they're going to prove themselves and really showcase their talent and be able to win put a few belts around their own waist as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Uncle.
Yes, thank you.
Well, to close this up, I'll take myself out of this, and I'll let you guys do a little promo about the Koloff Dynasty to end this as we go off the air.
Alexander, you go first, brother.
Starting off with this weekend, we've been saying we wanted an opportunity to be in the ring with some of the best teams in the world, and we get that this weekend with the Good Brothers at the Impact Plus taping for Lariato in Jackson, Georgia. Don't sleep on that. Gallows has, acted like he wanted to sleep on it in the past. We've got the Machine Gun, we've got the Big LG, and it's going to be a huge opportunity for us to show the world what we've been saying. That's going to be one to check out. I'm pretty excited for that.
Just like Alexander said, the world is going to see the Koloff Dynasty very, very soon. But world, I don't think you're ready for what the Koloff Dynasty can bring, because the Koloff Dynasty will bring havoc anywhere we go, anywhere and everywhere we go, whether it's AEW, Impact, Major League Wrestling, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is, from the words of our uncle Nikita Koloff, we will destroy you. Hannibal TV, thank you so much for having us.
And here's what I have to say. Just remember, when the Koloff Dynasty step into the ring, this all you have to remember is you will go down.